After getting rejected by 10 publishers, that 4-book deal was a blessing. And I celebrated pretty hard. It was a big dream of mine, a lifelong dream, to publish a novel. And then in this case, a series. It's a lot of work. Like I said, a lifelong dream. And so when someone validates that for you, there's nothing like it.
Welcome to Women's Thrive Podcast. This is where you'll get to hear incredible stories of female entrepreneurs, business owners, women from all walks of life. Myself, Raymond Jan, and my co-host Abigail will be interviewing incredible women, hearing inspiring stories of women from all around the world. I have no doubt that you will find something that will be life-changing for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our future episodes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Women Thrive podcast. My name is Abigail Rebecca. I am your co-host. And today we're going to be talking about something really interesting, actually. I can't wait for you to meet our guest today. So, how many of you readers? How many of you read? How many of you are into reading novels? How many of you are into reading romantic novels? I was just speaking to our guest just before we hit record, and I was talking about when I grew up, I remember reading like Victoria Holt and that kind of genre. And as I got older, Jilly Cooper, like I love a good romantic novel. And today's guest is in that field. I want to introduce you to the amazing MarcyB. She is an award-winning #1 best-selling author. She's founder of Tastefully Sexy by MarcyB. We're going to be finding out a little bit more about that. And an aspiring mindset coach, an educator for 36 years. Marcy has a master's degree in English and a master's in human development counseling, both from the University of Illinois. Marcy has published numerous online articles, and in March 2024, Words Matter Publishing took her 4-book romance-suspense series and published book, I, Deception and Consequences. Marcy, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Honestly, I've got so many questions that I want to ask you, and I really would like to hear a little bit of your story because it's fascinating, I think, how you got into this. But how did that feel? I just want to ask you right off the bat, when you got that 4-book deal, just share with us how that felt, because that must have been such a magical moment.
Well, after getting rejected by 10 publishers, that 4-book deal was a blessing. And I celebrated pretty hard. I think that any writer who has worked really hard to produce something from the heart, and it's been a big dream. It was a big dream of mine, a lifelong dream, to publish a novel, and then in this case, a series. It's a lot of work. Like I said, a lifelong dream. And so when someone validates that for you, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, well, congratulations on everything that you've achieved.
Thank
We're
you.
so excited to have you on our stage. I remember when you said yes to being a speaker at the Women Thrive Summit, 2025 Summit, I was like, yes, because as well as being a wonderful woman, and I loved your story, I loved your energy, I felt we really connected when we met. I just love what you do, and it's so different. Like, you are so different to many of our speakers, and this is amazing, right? Because we're all about diversity and having different women on our stage, and it's just wonderful for you to come and share your zone of genius on our stage. So welcome to the podcast today, and
Thank you.
Welcome to the Women Thrive stage. I'd really love to know a little bit more about your story, Marcy. Like, how on earth did you get into doing this for a living, being a romantic novelist?
I never saw myself as being a romance novelist. I saw myself as being a writer always. I wrote prolifically my entire life, and I got a few things published online and magazine articles and things like that. But I always wanted to have a book published, but I always saw myself writing something nonfiction, and I never really saw myself as a romance or a mystery writer. And then I had an idea. I just kind of pushed it to the back of my head because I thought, oh, that'd be a lot of work. I don't know if I want to do that. I just couldn't get it out of my mind. And I asked a couple friends, I said, am I crazy? Should I do this? And they're like, do it, do it. And then once I started writing, it was like it was downloading and I couldn't stop. And The Deception and Consequences, the first book in the series, it was supposed to be a standalone. And I changed my mind at the last minute. It's almost like I couldn't give it up. I couldn't stop loving the characters or I couldn't stop loving the story. So I'm on the last couple of pages and I had this idea and I'm like, I'm changing the ending. And I changed the ending so it would be a series at the last minute. And so that's the next day I started writing book 2. And I was like, I can't stop. I can't stop. And it just snowballed from there.
I love your covers. They're very dramatic.
I have a really good designer through my publisher. I love this one. And the third book is almost out. The third book cover is just, I am so in love with it. It should be out before Thanksgiving, the third book.
Wonderful, wonderful. Again, congratulations for everything that you've achieved. You were talking there about your characters, and I know that that is something we were talking about it off camera, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking about creating these characters, you really lit up when you were speaking about it. I could see that this is something that you really, really love doing. Can you share with us a little bit more about, because there's definitely an art to that, right?
Absolutely.
How do you create these characters? How do you bring them to life?
You actually have to give more attention to your characters than the storyline initially, especially in fiction, because you have a lot of liberties with fiction. And I've always said that fiction is something that teeters on what's possible and what's unlikely. And if you're going to write fiction that has a lot more of the unlikely, it's just going to sound hokey or impossible unless you have characters who make it sound like it could happen, right? Your characters have to be extra special and have not really extra powers, but you just really have to create them in a way that you believe in them and you know that they can do these things. And even if it's not really possible. So you have to give those characters your entire full attention and develop them from the inside out. And when I was teaching writing, students always want to create their characters by how they look and give them a name. And no, I'm like, no, give them a purpose, right? Give them a problem, give them a flaw, give them those inner qualities first and develop them from the inside out. And then they're more dynamic, they're more real, they're more human. And so that's how I always start with any story. I come up with the characters first, and then when I give them a purpose and give them a flaw, that naturally gives me a conflict to work with. My love affair in this series with Mac and Aria, I've said you'll want a love like Mac and Aria because it's absolutely true. I am so in love with those two characters. I didn't want the series to end, and I've tried to recreate that love affair, and I can't. I've written several books since. I can't recreate that love that I have with those two. So
it's just amazing that this is from your imagination. It's part of you, and you're just as in love with the characters as your readers are. It's really interesting, right? Because I always like to look at like a correlation between like business, like looking at business as well. When you were talking about how you craft your characters, it's slightly different, but it kind of reminds you of when you do a task of like trying to create who your ideal client is. So you can create this character in your head, and the more you can bring that character to life and give it, like you said, give it a personality and flaws, so you can create that conflict and really understand that character deep down. What kind of food do they like? Where do they like to hang out? Like, what is it that worries them? What is it that they love to do? What is it that completely lights them up? Can really start to create that and then start to then market to that person to bring them into your business, like client attraction. It sounds very kind of similar to what you do with your characterization.
Very much so. It's a study in humanity, really, honestly. And another step that kind of goes with that, you were saying what they do and what they think. I was just at Western Illinois University doing a guest lecture, and we were talking about how they were saying, how do you stretch out a scene? And you start with a simple thing. She was sitting at the counter waiting for him to arrive. All right. And then you have to think about what she was doing, what she was thinking, what she was seeing, what she was feeling before, during, and after. Right. And then you just keep stretching it out. Maybe she's nervous and she's picking at her fingernails, or she's looking around, or she's twisting her hair, or she's thinking about the last conversation they had when they were fighting. You just stretch it out. And then you get a real feel for what that person is like. That person's a nervous person. That person's a jealous person. That person. And you don't have to say they're nervous or jealous. You create that with the scene. And there's an art to that. And it's really hard to teach that. But once you get it, you get it.
And when you read a book like yours, I mean, it really is such an art, like you say, to bring it to life, because it's not like you're looking at a TV screen. So all of those things you can kind of like judge by sight. You really are painting a picture. But when you get immersed in a book like that, it's like when I read a book like yours, I feel like I'm there. Like I'm in that scene, I'm there, I'm with every step of the journey with that character and with those characters. And it's a real art to be able to do that, and quite unlike any other. Yeah. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs that want to write a self-help book, or they write a book about their story, which is beautiful. But this is just taking it even deeper, painting that picture.
You're right. And I think that's sometimes why maybe they always say the book was better than the movie. It is because everybody comes at it a little bit differently with what they see in their head when they're reading it. It has one general backbone that the author creates, but there's some liberties there. And that's why, like, if you look at the cover, their faces are muted and their side views, because I don't want anyone to fully know what Arya and Mac look like. I don't want to take that away from your imagination. They're beautiful people, by the way, inside and out. But I feel like the reader still has to have some control of what's going on for them in their experience. And that will be a little different for everybody. And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, because you're saying very often the book's better. I completely agree with that. The book's always better. I remember the first time I read.
Some things don't translate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's more detail, right? So you get more of the backstory with a book. That's what I love. I remember the first time I ever read Jurassic Park, and I hadn't seen the film, and I was a nanny in America. I was in St. Louis, Missouri, and I lived in a massive house, and they had a lot of land, and it got dark very quickly. And I remember swinging on the hammock, reading a book one night, and it suddenly went dark, and I was reading Jurassic Park, and I was absolutely terrified. I was petrified because it was so real. It really tapped into my imagination. And don't get me wrong, they are good films. But I wasn't as scared when I was watching the film as I was in the book. It was like everything, the atmosphere where I was reading it, like the circumstances. Yeah. And you build a picture in your head about what people look like. And sometimes I'll watch a film, I'll be like, he doesn't look like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally get it. I did a coloring book with this, but it's all lingerie and outfits. It's called Arya's Closet. So it's all like her clothes and things. They're like, don't you want any pictures of Arya? And nope, I don't want anybody to think I know what Arya looks like.
No,
just her clothes.
It's just her clothes. I love that you've done that. That is speaking to the fashionista inside of me. Marcy, I wanted to ask, why romance? Why romantic fiction? Why is it that genre that lights you up?
I cannot answer that. The only thing I can come up with, and this is something that happened this weekend, that when I was at Western Illinois, it maybe shed some light on this for me, because I'm just guessing at the answer to this. I spent so much time when I was teaching the classics and teaching things that people are supposed to read, to be educated or to be well read. And I feel like people should be able to read what they want to read and what moves them and what speaks to them. And if that's romance and mystery or thriller romance, then that should be what they read. And I feel like that's what I didn't get to read for years and years, what maybe I deep down wanted to read, but I was too busy teaching and reading all that other stuff. So I feel like it's just kind of bubbled up to the surface. And I had this situation, and I told you about this. I had this situation this weekend, and I think the guy was just kind of kidding around, but I had a really saucy answer that came back. He said something about romance, that's not a very serious genre. And where's the merit in that? What kind of writer are you if you're just writing romance? I said, well, if I can write a passage about a kiss that makes you feel that kiss, and nobody's touching your lips, but you feel like somebody's touching your lips because I'm using all the right words, and the one kiss lasts a whole page. Or I make you love and hate somebody simultaneously, and a character who's so fantastic and so horrible that you identify with them intricately. I said, there's merit in that. There's merit in being able to do that. And he kind of sat back and he looked at me and he said, well done. And he bought me a drink. And I was just like, there is merit in wordsmith. I'm a wordsmith. And it doesn't matter if I'm writing about kissing someone or whatever. I'm a wordsmith and I can do that. And there's merit in that. And I 100% use my talent.
Do you think you'll ever like run out of like scenarios for like sex scenes and things like that? All that have you got like
I find myself reusing some things, and I end up more like, oh, let's switch this just a little bit. I need some material. I don't know how that sounds. People ask my husband, they'll say, have you read her books? He's like, why do I need to read her books? I'm the inspiration. And I look at him, I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah. Whatever you think, honey. Whatever you think. He has no idea what's in those books. If he knew, he'd be like, that wasn't me.
I love it. I love it. I love a spicy read. There was a TikTok trend that was going on where like like in their 20s, young girls in their 20s. It was an English actor, and I can't remember his name. He's been in a few things, but he was reading. So he was the narrator of I don't know what book it was, but there was some spicy sex scenes in there. Have you ever seen Fleabag or heard of Fleabag? It's a British TV series. It's like, I think there were 2 series, and he played a priest in it. He's known as the hot priest. And the female character in it completely fancied this priest. And he's hot. So he's the hot priest. So everyone sort of that knows that program knows that he's the hot priest. So he was narrating this book. And then the girls were going on to TikTok and having his voiceover of the sex scenes in the book and kind of reacting to it. And it was just hilarious. And I was like, yeah, actually, I think sometimes there can be a little bit of snobbery in the entrepreneurial world, right? So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm focused on my personal development. I want to get to that next level. I want to open myself up consciously and develop. So therefore, I need to be reading all of these books, and there's a whole list, right, in order to develop myself. But like, how amazing just to sit and immerse yourself in pure fantasy. For me, that puts me in creation mode. So yes, okay, those books really inspire me. Of course they do. And I love the strategy and I love the inspiration and I love all of that. But I'm a creator. I create things. I create my business and I'm a creator. And when I can immerse myself in books like that, I'm creating. It lights me up and it energizes me. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I feel like sometimes people get a bad rap, like, oh, you're reading that dirty book, or you're reading that spicy book or whatever. I don't look at it that way. I look at it like I'm writing something that serves a purpose. And maybe the purpose is entertainment, maybe the purpose is escape. But like I said, fiction is what, my fiction anyway, is I see it as what teeters on that balance of what's possible and what's unlikely. And women don't want to read, they don't want to read those scenes or those love affairs or those stories about the usual, about the daily, about what they're already doing, right? They want that little bit of not possible, right? They want the twist, the plot twist. They want the danger. They want the romance. They want the dark romance. They want all that stuff that maybe this is not usual for them. And so I think it serves a purpose. And I really do feel like it's necessary for it's part of our culture now. I mean, it's big business. Books are big business. And I didn't even realize it until I started putting my books out there and having to sell myself and sell market my brand and market myself. I didn't even realize how big books are until I had books to sell.
The opportunities that this is bringing to you, I know that there's so many opportunities that it's bringing to you, but one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is that you're going to be at the Oscars, Ms. B. Tell us about that.
Well, it was quite a surprise to me, but I have connected with a really wonderful woman, Monique Lorraine Stinson. She's a podcaster and a radio personality on LA Talk Radio. I was on her podcast a couple months ago, and I'm going to be on her podcast again Sunday night. And she brought an opportunity to me for the Emmys, where I got to advertise my books, my book series, in their little swag bags, where you got to send little bookmarks with a QR code that how to get to my website and everything. And so she's providing an opportunity for me to go out during Oscar week and tag along with her and be at her little table as her associate, I guess, and meet media people, media groups, buyers, sellers, marketing people I would never, ever get to meet in Beverly Hills, staying on Rodeo Drive, a little out of my element. But I will have the best time 3 days in Beverly Hills in February. So I'm ecstatic.
Oh, that is fantastic. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
The shopping on Rodeo Drive. Hello.
This girl will probably not be shopping. My husband will probably make me leave all the credit cards except the business one at home. He'll be like, nope.
It's not all designer on there though. Like I had a friend who lived just at the back of Rodeo Drive. It was literally like 3 minutes walk. So the first time I ever went to stay with her, she was like, oh, let's go and take, she had a little dog called Bijou, right? She was like, let's go take Bijou for a walk. And the next minute I'm like, what? I recognize this place. And we were just walking down Rodeo Drive and that's where she walks her dog every day. And I'm like, oh, seriously, it felt like I was in a movie set. But you're going to be there during Oscars week. I mean, that is just incredible.
Yeah. I'm not going to the Oscars. I have to clarify. All my friends here are like, oh, you're going to the... Nope. I'm leaving. The Oscars are March 2nd. And yeah. I'm flying out of LA March 1st. So I'm just there for that that hubbub, the whole media frenzy. Yeah. You know, I'm there 3 days.
It might not be the ceremony, but it's all part of the Oscars, right?
I'm planning on maybe bumping into a few stars. Maybe. I don't know.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
I could.
Marcy, it's been so lovely to speak to you. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you?
The best way would be to go to my website, which is marcyb.net. Super easy, marcyb.net. And it has all my social media links on there. And my probably most prolific social media is Facebook. And it's just Marcy Bialeschki. Yeah, Marcy Bialeschki is my handle on Facebook. So that's amazing.
It. Marcy, thank you so much. I could speak to you all day. I find you fascinating. I find what you do fascinating. And we're so happy that you're a speaker on the Women Thrive Summit. We're so happy that you're part of our community. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing what you do.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
And thank you so much, everyone, for watching, for listening. Please follow Marcy. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd love to know if you've read Marcy's books. We're sure there'll be a lot of you that have. So we'd love to know all about that. And how excited are you that her next book will be coming out very, very soon? But for the time being, have an amazing day, whatever you're doing. And we will see you all soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Women Thrive podcast. If you found today's episode empowering and inspiring, be sure to subscribe and follow us. Better yet, leave a review and share it with others. We're committed to bringing you more stories that will empower and inspire you on your own journey. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pursuing your dreams.